objecting to, I think, most of the cannabis cultivations because it concerns.
Morning,
over water,
everyone.
but in
Okay,
this
Jake,
case,
I'm
they
just
don't
checking
have
to make sure
issues
that
with
you
it.
can hear us in the room. Oh, it says you're muted. Okay. There we go. Okay, now, can you hear us in the chamber?
In terms of how it's more of a habitat for deer and other creatures.
Yes, I can hear you in the chamber now. Sam.
Okay, so we are now live. So, Madam Chair, when you are ready to begin,
Is that an item
Granicus
that's
starting?
Recording in progress.
There we go.
Can we preserve the discussion for
We're ready to start.
the? Awesome.
Okay, so we are ready to begin.
Can we close the door?
Please.
Thank you. Good morning. I would like to call the Lake County Planning Commission meeting for August 26, 2021 to order. And we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We need to have a consideration of approval from the minutes from the July 22nd, 2021 Planning Commission meeting.
Madam Chair,
Please.
I move that the commission approve the minutes of the July 22nd, 2021 Planning Commission meeting.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Next, we'll have consideration of approval from the minutes of the August 12th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting.
Madam Chair, I would like to consider the approval of minutes from the August 12th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, and we will open it up for citizens' input. Anybody wish to speak on any items that are not currently on the agenda? Jake, do you have anybody in the Zoom room? With a hand
Currently,
raised?
there are no hands raised in the Zoom room. If you'd like to make a comment in the Zoom room, please raise your hand by clicking on raise hand on the bottom of the screen, or if you dialed in on the phone, dial *6. Yeah.
Thank you, Jake. And there's no one in chambers that wishes to speak. We will wait till 9:05 to address our first item. It is now 9:05. Item number 1 is a public hearing to consider a parcel map PM 21-01 to divide a 6.57 acre property to create 2 new parcels and consideration of a categorical exemption to CEQA. Applicant owner is Castlewood Estates LLC. Proposed project it's a 2-parcel land division. Location is 6763 Collier Avenue, California. It's in Nice. APN 031-071-18. And Eric has our staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Morning, Commissioners. Eric Porter, Associate Planner, Lake County. Yeah, we have before us a 2-parcel land division. The southern, what? Eric, can you share that on Zoom? I'm not quite sure how to do that.
I'm sorry, are you trying to share the screen, Eric?
Well, they're asking me to put it on Zoom, but I'm not quite sure how to do that.
Okay, here's, hold on one second. You should have received a pop-up.
Oh, he's not on Zoom.
Okay, stand by. This will take a minute.
Okay, you got it?
Is this the one, the Castlewood?
I think that's it.
Castlewood.
Thank you, Jake.
All right, thank you for the patience. Should be ready to go.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. So we're looking at a 2-parcel land division. Property is located actually in Upper Lake. There was some question as to whether it was Upper Lake or Nice, but in looking at the legal description of the property, it's technically in Upper Lake. Property is 6.57 acres. I'm not sure how to get rid of that right hand. The parcel is half developed. The southern part has a manufactured home park on it, and it's fully contained within the property. The northern portion contains a walnut orchard. I indicated it's 6.57 acres in size, proposing 2 equally sized 3.26 acre parcels. The property is zoned R3 SC. R3 is high density residential. SC is scenic combining, which essentially puts height limits on structures. They're not proposing any development with this land division. It's simply a lot split. So here's a snapshot of the zoning in the area. It's primarily high-density residential and lower-density residential around it. Aerial photo. This is the developed southern half of the property, and the walnut orchard is the northern half up here. Parcel map, this is a little bit hard to read. It does not look like those two properties are equally sized. It's a drafting technique. There's actually cut lines on it in order to fit the entire property within the borders of the property lines, and they are in fact equally sized, even though it doesn't look like it on this map. So, in order to approve a land division, we have to look at compliance with the general plan, the applicable area plan, and certain parts of the zoning ordinance. That would apply to the R3 zone, the scenic combining district, and Chapter 17 of the county code, which is the subdivision ordinance for dividing land. We found it was compliant with the general plan, the applicable portions of it, primarily for high-density residential. It's compliant with the Upper Lake Nice area plan, the portions that are applicable. The density is appropriate for the R3 zoning district. And again, no development's being proposed, so there's no need to look at future development at this point in time. They're allowed to have lots that are 3.2 acres in size as they're proposing. Scenic combining is not affected because there's no new development being proposed. And we found that the parcel map totally complies with the requirements within Chapter 17 of the county code. So compliance with Chapter 17 is probably the more lengthy part of dividing land. We have to look at 17.6, a tentative map, 17.7, statements that are required to be on the map, 17.22, which is right-of-way dedications if they're required, 17.23 looks at the individual lots, 17.24 requires any easements to be shown on the map, 17.27A addresses Quimby Park fees that are applicable with residential land divisions, and 17.28 looks at potential improvements that might be needed. CEQA, there was no land disturbance occurring with this. We felt it was categorically exempt from a CEQA analysis, and so consequently we're recommending that the Planning Commission adopt a categorical exemption under Section 15.315, small land divisions within CEQA. And we're recommending that the Planning Commission approve parcel map PM 2101 and adopt the categorical exemption to CEQA. And with that, I'll answer any questions if you have any questions about this.
Thank you, Eric. Does anyone on the commission have any questions or comments before we open it up to the public? Okay. We'll go ahead and open it up for public comment. If anyone wants to speak on this item in chambers, feel free to approach the podium. Jake, do we have any hands raised in the Zoom room?
Yes, we currently have one hand raised in the Zoom room.
Floor is yours. Just be sure to state your first and last name.
All right, Vance, I see your hand raised. I have given you permission to speak. Looks like you're unmuted.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Vance Ricks, and I am the applicant on this minor subdivision that's in front of you today. And if you had any questions or concerns, I will be listening online, and I can hopefully answer them for you.
Thank you. You can speak.
Yes, I just have one quick question, Vance. Why are you doing this?
It's a two-parcel minor subdivision. We are taking apart the existing mobile home park that's to the south. creating that as parcel 2 of this subdivision. And with the remaining portion on the northern part, which would be parcel 1, which is currently an existing walnut orchard. So the concept behind this subdivision is to create the mobile home park to be sole and separate on one lot, which is kind of how it's configured now, and then making the orchard to the north a separate lot.
Right, I understand that. So why do you want to separate them?
It's the use. The use of the mobile home park is totally separate from what's to the north of the walnut orchard. And the owner applicant decided that's where he wanted to put it. There's an existing fence and it's almost visually separated on itself.
So you just want to create different parcels, you just want to separate them?
That is correct, yes. We're basically separating the mobile home park from the orchard.
Does that answer your question?
Well, I assume that, I mean, the reason we usually do that is so that you can sell one or, you know, change the ownership in some way. I was just wondering if I was missing something.
None of that is planned at this moment, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any other hands in the Zoom room, Jake, before we close public comment?
No, there are no hands raised in the Zoom room at this time.
Okay, I will go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to the commission. Any other questions or concerns, or is someone prepared to make a motion?
I have no questions. I'm prepared to make a motion on this. Sure. I move that the Planning Commission find, on the basis of the environmental review undertaken by the Planning Commission and no mitigation measures were added to the project, that the parcel map PM 21-01 as applied for by Kelseyville Estates LLC on property located at 6763 Collier Avenue, Upper Lake, APN 031-071-18, will not have a significant effect on the environment, and thereof recommend the Planning Commission approve the proposed categorical exemption per SEQA section 15315 with the findings listed in the staff report dated August 26, 2021.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries.
I further move that the Planning Commission find that the tentative parcel map PM 21-01 as applied for by Kelseyville Estates LLC on property located at 6763 Collier Avenue, Upper Lake, APN 031-071-18 is in conformance with the provisions of the Subdivision Map Act and Chapter 17 of the Lake County Code and the Lake County Zoning Ordinance, and upon that basis approve said map subject to the conditions and with the findings listed in the staff report dated August 26, 2021.
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Please note that the applicant or any interested person is reminded that the subdivision ordinance provides for a 15-day calendar day appeal period. If there is a disagreement with the Planning Commission, an appeal to the Board of Supervisors may be filed. The appropriate forms and applicable fees must be submitted prior to 5 p.m. on or before the 15th calendar day following the Commission's final determination. Moving forward, for our second item for 910 is a public hearing to consider a major use permit UP 20-82 consisting of 12 commercial cannabis licenses consisting of 346,667 square feet of outdoor cannabis cultivation, 48,000 square feet of indoor greenhouse cannabis cultivation, a 10,000 square foot drying building, and a type 4 nursery license, a type 13 self-distribution licenses, and consideration of adoption of a mitigated negative declaration, IS 20-98. Applicant is BG Property Management, LLC. Proposed project is commercial cannabis cultivation located at 9200 and 9100 and 8722 Highland Springs Road, Lakeport, California. APNs 007-006-45, 007-006-10, and 007-006-43. And Eric has our staff report prepared.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Point of clarification on this, you should have received some green sheets. We received two comments, yesterday, one in support, one in opposition. The supportive green sheet talked primarily about the ownership, how they maintain the property, and I can verify that the property is very well maintained. Opposition had to do with concerns over water. We couldn't find any basis for the complaint or concern about water as being justified despite the drought. We received a water analysis showing essentially drawdown from neighboring wells. The nearest well is over a half mile away from the well that's on the subject site. The property is quite large. It's 206 acres in total. There are 3 properties actually, and they add up to about 206 acres in total. There would be a significant amount of water usage, as is depicted within the water analysis, which I believe was prepared by Bill Vanderwall, who's a civil engineer in Kelseyville. Did not indicate that it would be problematic to the area aquifer, in spite of the fact that it's a fairly significant cultivation area. The other point of order, or point of concern, I guess, I had been under the impression it was in the Lakeport area plan. It actually is in the Kelseyville area plan. So one of the green sheets has findings that show compliance with the Kelseyville area plan. And if you decide to make a decision on this matter today, you would probably want to reference that a change to the staff report is needed in order to put the findings that are on the green sheet for the Kelseyville area plan in place. So with that, I lost my PowerPoint.
Yes, we need to share it on Zoom. Which one is it?
UP
That one.
2082.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so as I indicated, the entirety of the site is about 206 acres in size. It's a very big property. Parts of it are very hilly. It's extremely scenic. The views from the house are spectacular. It's a very well-maintained lot. It's zoned RL, B5, WWSC, which is rural lands. B5 is frozen, meaning they can only subdivide it to an extent, and they don't have any plans to further subdivide that I'm aware of. Waterway indicates that there's some kind of a water feature that's on the site, probably a creek. Was not visible from the cultivation site or from the proposed building site. Scenic combining limits heights of new buildings. That would apply to the 10,000 square foot drying building. If it's within a scenic combining, they're limited to a certain height, which I believe is 15 feet for a non-habitable structure, but no imminent development is occurring at the moment. They'd have to come back with the plans for the metal building. So they would have a height limitation due to the scenic combining overlay on that property. Cannabis cultivation is allowed under Article 27, Subsection AT of the zoning ordinance in the RL district. The chairman indicated what sizes are being proposed, which are at the bottom of this slide. There was some outdoor, primarily outdoor. There was also just over an acre of indoor cultivation, and the 10,000 square foot drying building would be considered as cultivation area for taxing purposes. Here are the properties. They do have to go through BLM land. We've encountered this before. The road that leads to the property is actually through the middle of the BLM land. So we have a template that they would need to sign, and it's essentially a waiver. Since cannabis is a Schedule I narcotic at the federal level, they would need to sign the waiver in order to protect the county. That is not included in the conditions of approval, but it needs to be added as one of the conditions, since they in fact do have to pass through federal land. And they are applying for a type 13 self-distribution license so they can transport to and from the subject site, bringing new plants onto the property and bringing processed product off of the property. The way the lot's laid out, when you come onto the site, there's a fairly significant grade that you have to go up, but it's not lengthy. CAL FIRE has certain road requirements, including it has to be more than a mile away from a public road, and in this case it is less than a mile away from the public road leading to the site, Highland Springs Road, so they're compliant with the distance requirement. They would have to do some on-site improvements to the driveway. It doesn't exceed the slope that CAL FIRE requires, which is 16%. It's slightly less than that. They would need to widen it some. It doesn't appear just visually that it would rise to the level of requiring a grading permit. The road is actually already in place. It just needs to be widened in a few areas leading to the building site, which is in Area B. The house is located in Area B. If you continue on, it goes downhill to a flattened out area that's already devoid of shrubs, trees, etc. They were issued early activation for Area A, and they have, I would guess, probably 2 acres of plants in the ground when we went out there and observed it. Water analysis. This is a big deal. It's becoming more of a big deal as the drought continues. There was an analysis done. It was submitted recently. It's dated August 4th, 2021, prepared by Vanderwall Engineering, who's a civil engineer. The well test shows 70 gallons per minute. The well is drilled to a depth, I think it's actually more than that, but anyway, it's no less than 300 feet down. The analysis concluded that the aquifer depth is 387. And there was adequate water to serve the project. And the nearest neighboring well is over a half a mile away from the subject well. Here's a picture of the cultivation area. As I mentioned, the site is very well maintained. It's extremely clean. It's a very beautiful site, actually. And I kind of got a kick out of this. They had spray painted the handicap parking on dirt, so it's going to have to be improved, but this is just an indicator of where the handicap parking would be located. And so if you're looking at the cultivation site, the handicap space is actually over here off the slide. So the compliance that we had to evaluate had to do with the Lake County General Plan, whether it complies with that, with the Kelseyville Area Plan, as I've indicated in the green sheet that you have in front of you, and with certain parts of the Lake County zoning ordinance, including Article 7, which is the RL zone, Article 27, Subsection AT, which covers commercial cannabis cultivation in Lake County, and Article 51, which pertains to major use permits, Subsection 4. We also have to evaluate it for CEQA compliance. And so to reiterate, there are 6 findings that have to be met for a major use permit. Those are found in Article 51, Subsection 4. 3 findings for approval are also within Article 27. We notified the neighbors within 725 feet of the proposal. There were 5 in total. None of them live on site. They're all either out of state or out of area. And we have received no adverse comments to date regarding this proposal. So the major use permit findings that have to be met: that the use will not be detrimental to the health, safety, morals, conduct, comfort, and general welfare of the neighborhood. We were able to make that finding. Number 2, that the site is adequate in size, shape, location, and physical characteristics to accommodate the type and use and level of development proposed. We were able to make that finding. It's a very large site. There are no immediate neighbors that would be impacted from odor, dust, or other things that are typically associated with commercial cannabis cultivation. Number 3, the streets, highways, and pedestrian facilities are reasonably adequate to safely accommodate the proposed use. As I indicated, there needs to be some improvements to the internal driveway. The applicant's aware of it. He's provided us with a engineered plan showing improvements that will make the interior driveway CAL FIRE road compliant, which is Public Resource Code 4290 and 4291. It specifies certain widths, certain grades, overhead clearance, etc. Number 4, that there are adequate public or private services, including but not limited to fire protection, water supply, sewage disposal, and police protection. Property is served by Lakeport Fire, I believe, and by CAL FIRE. It is remote. It's on the border of the Mendocino County line. However, Highland Springs Road is a fairly substantial road that CAL FIRE would be able to negotiate to serve it with fire protection. Water I've touched on briefly. Sewage disposal, they would need to add a new septic system, as I understand it, for the ADA restroom that would be inside of the 10,000 square foot drying building. And given the size of the property, there would be no problem with them adding a second septic system if they in fact need it. And then finally, police protection would be provided by the Lake County Sheriff's Department. Number 5, the project is in conformance with the applicable provisions of the code, the general plan, and any approved zoning or land use plan. And in this case, that would be the Kelseyville area plan. So we found that it complied with Article 27, Subsection AT of the code, Article 51.4, which is major use permit findings for approval, this being one of them, and the other applicable documents that we would apply against this, including the general plan and the Kelseyville area plan. And finally, the no violations of chapters 5, 17, 21, 23, or 26 exist on the property. There were no documented violations whatsoever. So subsection 27 has 3 findings that have to be made. Number 1, the use complies with the development standards in Article 27 with the exception of the water situation. And in this case, they've demonstrated that they have adequate water supply for the property in spite of the drought. Number 2, the applicant is qualified to make the application. The applicant is Brian Brown. He has passed the live scan background check. He is qualified to make this application. And number 3, the application complies with the qualifications for a permit found in Article 27 with the exception of the water situation. I think the reason I added that was because of the new ordinance number 3106 that was adopted by the board, and that simply requires a cumulative water analysis be provided. Mr. Brown has done that. He's met the requirements for submittal for water adequacy. CEQA, California Environmental Quality Act. We found that there are certain potential impacts that could result from this project that can be mitigated through mitigation measures. Has to do with aesthetics, air quality, biological resources, cultural, tribal, geological, soils, and noise. As far as aesthetics, there are no neighbors that can see the greenhouses because of how the lot is laid out. The cultivation areas are in the low part of the lot. There are no houses that are on neighboring lots that can see into the property. It's extremely isolated. And so there is a requirement for blackout screening in the event future people move onto the property. And again, this permit would be valid for 10 years. So it's quite possible that there would be new houses built in the vicinity, although given the 200-acre size of the property, it's very unlikely that they would be able to see the greenhouses to begin with. So regardless, we put a condition in requiring blackout screening so light wouldn't migrate outside of the greenhouses. Air quality, there are certain specific mitigation measures that are typically associated with commercial cannabis cultivation that have been added into this. Biological resources, the site's already been disturbed. It's unlikely that any potential biological resources will be disturbed by this project. However, based on the bio study and survey that we received, the biologists made several recommendations that are actually incorporated as mitigation measures. Cultural tribal, we almost always add 2 requirements in the event that any relics, potentially significant artifacts, or human remains are discovered during site disturbance. In this case, the site's already been disturbed. It's unlikely, based on the cultural study that we received, that further significant artifacts, relics, or even human remains will be unearthed based on the minimal additional site disturbance that's needed. Geological applies to prehistoric, and again, that ties into the cultural tribal. If there are any prehistoric, potentially significant relics that are unearthed, they need to be treated by incorporating the archaeologists who did the initial survey and potentially the local tribe that serves that area, which I think is the Scotts Valley Pomo. I'd have to check in my notes. It's been a while since I've had a project in this specific area. And then finally, noise. That pertains to construction and post-construction potential noise sources, which is generally generators and heavy equipment that is needed to prep the site for what little site disturbance are needed in the future. So the recommendation of staff is to adopt the mitigated negative declaration ISMND IS 20-98 and to approve major use permit UP 20-82. And with that, I'll answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Eric. We will bring it to the commission. Does anyone have any questions for Eric? Or I do believe the applicant is here as well.
Yeah, I wanted to go over the math. What is your spacing going to be for your plants? How many plants do you plan to have per acre?
If you want to approach the podium and make sure you state your first and last name.
Some of that's still to be determined.
Can you-
We received early activation.
I don't want to cut you off. Can you say your first and last name?
Oh, I'm sorry. Brian Brown.
Thank you.
Sorry. We received early activation on July 20th, so it kind of a little late in the season, so we adopted a strategy starting with smaller plants to do more plants in the cultivation area. But in future years, I think what we would plan is somewhere between 600, maybe like 600 to 1,000 plants per acre, and kind of spaced in a 4x4 grid. So
Okay.
4 foot off center.
4 foot by 4 foot.
Yes,
And if I understand correctly, it's 9.3 acres of outdoor canopy, is that about right?
correct.
Okay, so I was just doing the math on that, and it looks like you have a well that's producing 55 gallons per day.
55,
I'm sorry.
like 70 gallons per minute.
Per minute, okay.
Yeah.
So our report here says, I think, 55 gallons per minute, and that's what the well test showed. So I just wanted to run through the math on that. That's 3,300 gallons per hour. And if each plant needs 6 gallons per day, then that's a 1/4 gallon per hour. Am I doing this right here?
I wouldn't say 6 gallons per plant per day.
Okay, that's what we have on here, on our report, the annual
Okay.
projected
Well,
water.
Okay, I would think we would use less than that.
Yeah, it seems like an awful lot.
Yes.
But if you do use that figure, that comes out to 13,750 plants that would be supported by this well. So even if it were 3 gallons, that would be 27,400 plants. So I'm just concerned that you're not going to have enough water.
Well, if we do, let's say 600 plants per acre,
Yeah,
and
times 9.3. Yeah, that's 5,500. Yeah, that's much better.
right, and then I think reevaluating things as we're doing it now. I mean, I don't anticipate using more than maybe a gallon to 2 gallons per plant per day. So I think that so that
I think it's doable.
yes,
Okay, yeah, I'm just learning about this cannabis production, so bear with me.
yes.
I had a couple other questions, if that's all right.
I feel like if you want to address the applicant with your questions, and then we'll open it up for public comment.
Okay, that'd be great. You stated that you would bring in organic fertilizers.
Correct.
So by organic, do you mean just organic matter, or do you mean OMRI-approved
The way
products?
that we feed is typically through, or exclusively actually through like organic compost teas that we mix into a feeding tank and agitate and feed through the drip irrigation system.
Right, and so by using the term organic, do you mean that those substances will all be OMRI-approved?
Correct, 100%, yes, of course.
And are you planning to add any other organic matter, or, I mean, I'm seeing people bring in a lot of topsoil in these operations.
Right, and no, I mean, we don't plan to, no. I mean, if we did, it might be some compost, but, some organic compost, but that would basically be the extent of it. One of the things that, California, or the CDFA just passed a OCal certification, which is an organics sort of certification, a couple of weeks ago. And that certification is something that I'm excited to enter into. And that to be certified, it gives you very stringent operations, procedures to be a certified organic farm, which I'm passionate about, and that's what I want this farm to be. So I plan, as assuming everything is approved, to start that application and then be adhere to those guidelines, which I think are excellent guidelines. And just personally, I think moving forward, the more that you can with an organic certification, I feel like cannabis consumers will appreciate that and value that, and that's how I've always cultivated. And so, I will hopefully get it. I mean, I'm going to plan to enroll and apply for that certification and meet all of the guidelines to be a certified OCal is the name of the program, Organic Farm.
I did a little reading about it, and I understand they're basing their criteria on the National Organic Program standards, so yeah.
Yes,
I'm glad to hear that, thank you.
Yeah, and then just if I may, there's also, they recently passed a appellations ordinance, which is something that I'm excited about as well, that takes into the terroir of the earth, the geographic area, the climate, the microclimate, the kind of elevations at where you're at, and so I plan to enroll in that, and that's involved with where you have to partner with a couple of other cannabis farms in the area to certify together to create an appellation, which I think is another thing that kind of makes your farm stand apart, and also delivers to the consumer the ability to understand that where exactly, geographically, the cannabis is produced. And I think that those two programs specifically are the two I'm most excited about, because I think it's starting to give that ability to differentiate, from what makes this farm special. And as the industry kind of grows and evolves, I think everyone should be, trying to get to that standard, but I'm excited about it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My only other question is about erosion. With the amount of water you're using, I'm not too concerned about it. But if it ever does rain again,
I know, I pray for rain.
I understand that you're planning to use straw wattles around it
100%, yes.
and just around the growing area.
Yep,
Okay.
exactly, yes.
Thank you very much. That's
Thank
all
you
my
very much.
questions.
Any other commissioners that would like to address the
Yes, I
applicant?
do have one question for the applicant.
Yes.
Sort of building on my colleagues' questions. In terms of the severe drought situation that we're in and the urgency ordinances that the Board of Supervisors have recently passed, in terms of planting out your square footage, et cetera, have you given any thought to how many plants and what you want your operation to look like during this period of severe drought?
Yes, currently, we were approved for early activation for an 1.5 acre of outdoor cultivation. I mean, a couple of things on the irrigation system that that we're developing an irrigation plan, and there's a lot of kind of different technologies and sensors that are being used in other agricultural farming that I plan to put in place. Like, for example, there's sensor probes that will measure the moisture content within the ground to kind of give you an idea, or you start to collect data on that to understand when the plants actually do need water. And so what you might find out, and what I think we'll find out, is that will allow us to use a lot less water than just setting up a irrigation plan and watering every day. And I'm excited to implement that. There's a couple of irrigation firms that I've gotten proposals from to do that. Additionally, we've been approved this year, and then I think, just depending on how the drought continues, I mean, if I don't, I'm cognizant of it and would kind of respond with maybe even, slower development of increased cultivation.
Thank you. That was really the point of my question, and it's a question I'll be asking applicants going forward, given the new urgency ordinances and the nature of the drought. I was getting to the question of scale as well, so thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
One quick question. So I'm looking at the BG property management plan. Those charts towards the end with water usage, it says monthly water use estimates from 300,000 in April, 600,000 in May. Are those? I mean, you don't necessarily know that that's going to be the actual number.
Correct. Those are estimates.
And those were based off of what Vanderwall designed for you guys?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, if you guys have said your pieces, I'll go ahead and open it up for public comment. Does anyone wish to speak in chambers in regards to this? Okay. Jake, is there anyone in the Zoom room?
No, currently there are no hands raised in the Zoom room.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, go ahead. We will go ahead and close public comment, and if you guys want to have a little bit further discussion on this item amongst the commission, we can, or if you guys are prepared to make a motion.
Madam Chair?
Please.
I just wanted to, before getting to the motion, indicate that the staff report will be amended to acknowledge the need for signing the BLM waiver, and that we will substitute the green sheet reference to the Kelseyville area plan instead of the Lakeport area plan.
Correct. So that, as amended here today, correct? Okay. Do you have any other questions or comments?
I'm just kind of reviewing the math here.
Okay. Did you want a few more minutes?
Actually, I have one more question for the
Yeah,
applicant,
please.
or for Eric, whoever can answer. So they said yeah, that the property has some waterways. Are those natural springs or creeks going through?
If you could just have to approach the mic, and please just tell us your first and last name again. Thank you.
Brian Brown. There is a seasonal pond and a year-round pond as well, but they're more than a half a mile away from the cultivation area and with no plans to use it for a water source ever. They're beautiful ponds.
And when did you acquire the property?
In July 2020.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if I closed public comment, but I'm going to go ahead and close it again and bring it back to the commission.
I'm prepared to make a motion.
Please.
I move that the Planning Commission find that the initial study IS 20-98 applied for by BG Property Management LLC on property located at 9200, 9100, and 8722 Highland Springs Road, Lakeport, and further described in the motion, will not have a significant effect on the environment, and therefore a mitigated negative declaration shall be approved with the findings listed in the staff report dated August 26, 2021, and is amended here today.
I second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay,
Madam Chair?
please.
I move that the Planning Commission find that the major use permit UP 20-82 applied for by BG Property Management LLC on property located at 9200, 9100, and 8722 Highland Springs Road, Upper Lake, and further described as APN, and further described in the motion, does meet the requirements of Section 51.4 of the Lake County zoning ordinance, and the major use permit be granted subject to the conditions and with the findings listed in the staff report dated August 26, 2021, and as amended here today.
Commissioner Hess, if I may, it is in Lakeport,
Okay.
not Upper Lake, just to be corrected. So there's a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Please note that the applicant or any interested person is reminded that the zoning ordinance provides for a 7 calendar day appeal period. If there is a disagreement in the Planning Commission's decision, an appeal to the Board of Supervisors may be filed. The appropriate forms and applicable fees must be submitted prior to 5 p.m. on or before the 7th calendar day following the Planning Commission's determination. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to our Untime staff update.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Good morning.
Good morning. David Bosch, Management Partners, Consultant to the County. It's my pleasure this morning to introduce our newest planner to the Planning Commission. Ms. Laura Hall's here in the chambers.
Hi, good morning.
Laura is a resident of Lucerne, has been for quite some time, and she comes to the county with over 18 years of experience, both in the private sector as well as serving public agencies. So we're very excited to have her on staff.
Welcome aboard.
Yep,
Thank
great to have you.
Excellent. Okay, is anything further from staff or anyone? Okay, thank you so much, and meeting's adjourned.